Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is John Laxmi inviting you to another episode of my Zoom Out series. This is a series in which we take a topic and examine it by zooming out, by stepping aside and viewing it from multiple angles and getting a better understanding. In this process, we usually end up with even more questions than we started with, and that's okay. Indeed, that's the whole point of this series. Are you ready? Let's zoom out. Hello, welcome back, friends, to another Zoomcast. In today's Zoomcast, we're going to examine India's budget. Yes, India, the rising star on the global horizon. Its economy is $4 trillion large. It claims that it's the third or fourth largest economy in the world. It has just signed a major trade deal with the European Union, which is being hailed as the mother of all trade deals, and also signed a deal with the United States, which I jokingly call the father of all deals. So, what is in India's national budget? It's a large budget. It's approximately $600 billion large. They denominate it in Indian rupees. And I don't think it's fair to convert it into dollars like that, but just to give you a size of the magnitude, it's around $580 billion worth of Indian rupees, which buys a lot more than $600 billion would in the United States. So it's a large budget. Now let's look at what is in this budget. Here's a pie chart to look at the allocations on a percentage basis to see where the emphasis is. 26% of the budget goes away in interest payments on debt. Indian government lives largely on debt. India does not tax its citizens much for its expenditures. It just keeps borrowing money and must pay interest on it, and nearly a quarter of the budget goes away in interest. Next, around 15% goes into defense. India's defense budget is very large because it is in conflict with most of its neighbors. China to the north, Pakistan to the west, and to the east. Bangladesh used to be a friend of India. Now they've got conflicts too. So India keeps spending a large amount of money on defense. That's 15%. And then 15% of the budget goes to the states, because the Indian states themselves do not have the taxing authority to tax its citizens. So the central government collects taxes and shares 15% of it with the states. So we have now given away about more than half the budget, 56% of the budget, in interest payments, defense, and to the states. What is left? 44%. And of this, about 11% goes to transportation, the railways, and leaving very little for other important initiatives. Rural development, where nearly 50% of Indians are employed in agriculture, gets less than 4% of the budget. Healthcare, which is crucial to every country, gets merely 2% of the budget. Education gets less than 3% of the budget. Now, some may claim that education is a local responsibility, state's responsibility in India, and so maybe part of the 15% allocated to the states is being used for education. But even if you add 1/3 of it, say 5%, India is spending very little on education. Environment, even less than 1% of the budget. And so my friends, India has got its priorities all inverted. Let's look at India's budget in comparison with its peers. Its peer group would probably be the BRICS countries, the so-called BRICS bloc of countries, BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have formed a bloc. So let's look at India's budget in comparison with the rest. In defense, Russia, of course, spends a third of its budget on defense because it's fighting a bloody war with Ukraine. China spends only 5 to 6% of its budget in defense, but India spends 3 times as much, 15% of its budget, nearly half of the percentage allocated by Russia on defense. Interest payment, Brazil spends 20%, South Africa spends 22%, China spends only 5% on interest payments, India spends 26%. On healthcare, all of the BRICS countries spend larger than India. On education, all of them are bad. They spend very little on education, which is probably the reason why large numbers of Chinese and Indians and Russians and South Africans and Brazilians go abroad to study. On the environment, all of them say they are poor countries, they belong to the southern bloc, and they blame the developed countries for polluting the atmosphere. They themselves are not to blame. But guess what? India has a very big pollution problem. A World Bank study recently concluded here 1.7 million deaths are attributable to pollution. 18% of all deaths in India are attributable to pollution. Pollution is air pollution, water pollution, pollution of food and medicines, and it's all very visible in India. Pollution is visible to everyone, but the country doesn't do anything about it. This is a national emergency. Now, there are wonderful companies in the West, both in Europe and the United States, that can help India solve its pollution problems. The French company called Veolia, another one called Suez, Honeywell from the United States, Aecon, many other companies specialize in water treatment and sewage treatment and in installing scrubbers on polluting coal power plants, which can help India reduce its pollution. Now that India has signed major trade agreements with both Europe and the United States, will India invite Western companies to help solve its pollution problems? We will see. We will see. Unfortunately, India is not focused on water treatment plants or sewage treatment plants. India wants bullet trains. India wants data centers which use up lots and lots of power and water supplies. Indeed, in this budget, there is a long tax holiday for investors in data centers. If a foreign company invests money in India data centers, they won't have to pay taxes until the year 2047. This is travesty. Now let's look at the process by which this budget will be passed. The process in India is on February 1, the ruling party is supposed to deliver a budget to the parliament, which is what the finance minister did recently, a couple of days ago on February 1. India's fiscal year starts on April 1. So during the month of February and March, India's parliament must take up this budget, deliberate it, discuss and debate it, and pass a budget. What are the opposition parties doing in India? The opposition parties are asleep, weak, and distracted. In fact, the most vocal opposition party member is a guy named Shashi Tharoor from the state of Kerala. He is a flamboyant orator. And what was his response to this budget? He made a mockery of himself by reciting a verse. Let's listen to it. It's funny. Let's listen to it.
Tax our petrol, tax our shirt, tax our footwear, tax our dirt. Tax our mobile, tax our phones, tax our hovels, crumbling walls. Tax our salary, tax our ride. tax our mithai on the side. Tax our sorrow and tax our cheer. Tax our future year by year. GST income tax forms pile high. Cesses, surcharges make us sigh. Roads with potholes, trains that derail. Where does it go? Is it all a fail? When we ask, is this all in vain? You smile and say, it's for the nation's gain.
As you heard, the opposition is railing against taxes. Indians are not taxed much. In fact, Indians pay very little taxes and they get very little from their government. Indeed, the low quality of life in India is driving many Indians abroad. Although life in India is getting better, many affluent and successful Indians are leaving India in recent years. They're going to Dubai, Singapore, Australia, UK, Canada, and even to the United States. India must reverse its priorities. Bullet trains and data centers can wait. India must attend first to that poor woman and the child. Hope someone is listening. I hope someone is listening. See you in the next Zoomcast.